Welcome back. I'm still in studio with political analyst Moeletsi Mbeki, reflecting on the legacy of the former apartheid president, F.W. de Klerk. The context, of course, it is the 30th anniversary this week of that speech that he delivered on the 2nd of February 1990, announcing the release of political prisoners as well as the unbanning of the various anti-apartheid movements of the time. Let's pick up our conversation then with some of the suggestions you've made in your piece about how, in order for the country to move forward, we need to reckon with whether constitutionally what emerged in the 90s was ever going to be effective to where the country wants to go.
Well, it's not really a question of constitution. It's a question of policies. Are the policies that are being implemented solving the massive problem that we inherited from the past, which is the massive poverty and the massive unemployment in South Africa? Some people think it is a constitutional issue. Therefore, we have the issue of expropriation of land without compensation, and people think you have to change the constitution in order to facilitate this to happen. In my view, I don't think that is the real problem.
What needs to happen?
What needs to happen is we have to restructure the South African economy. The South African economy is a minerals-based economy that benefits a small elite. It was set up by the British at the end of the 19th century for them to get South Africa's gold and diamonds, and they selected a small elite to run the country on their behalf, which was initially Jan Smuts and then the National Party. Today, the black nationalist movement has joined the small elite, and it benefits enormously from the existing structure. But the mass of the people of South Africa, especially the African people and the colored people, are living in poverty. So we have to restructure the economy, not just to benefit the few, but to benefit the majority.
So that's not necessarily a revelation, right? Everyone has always known that the South African economy requires restructuring for the benefit of the poor majority in the country. You were part of those years in the ANC struggle, the processes in the early 90s. When people sat in rooms at the time and were trying to forge a way forward for the country, could no one foresee that much of the policy, much of what was in law at the time, essentially, would benefit people who were already privileged?
Oh, yeah, no. Everybody could see this. We could foresee it, but the ANC was a very big party with many schools of thoughts with it, with many interest groups with it. Other interest groups wanted to retain, which turned out to be the majority, to retain the existing economic system and engage black people to be added to the existing structure rather than transforming the structure so that a big number of people can benefit from the economic system.
Do you think that's likely to happen in this lifetime?
I think it is likely to happen in the lifetime. I think it's going to be very costly. We've had 25 years of a democratic government, and in that 25 years, we're sitting with nearly 40% unemployment, a huge number of our population living in poverty. They are not going to tolerate this for another 25 years, 30 years, 100 years, as has been happening in the past.
Let's talk about what you just raised, the issue of South Africa's poor. It would appear, at least from what we cover in the media with the protests, be it at universities or in the various townships and other communities, that something is bubbling, and some are saying that what it's going to take for South Africa to finally get into second gear and deliver the change, at least with the ANC government, is that there will be an uprising of sorts, to phrase it in those words, that'll force that sort of action. Do you think ultimately that's where it'll go?
Yes, I think given that there is no change of policies on the part of the government, and given that the opposition in South Africa is very, very weak, the political opposition in Parliament is very weak, and it is not coming up with constructive solutions on how to solve these problems, then eventually you end up with an uprising. You end up with that kind of of a conflict. Obviously, this is not the best solution, but if there is no change for the mass of the people, there is, on one hand, and on the other hand, they see a small group which is benefiting, both black and white. Why should they be living in poverty, in Diepsloot, in the rural areas, when there is this small group of people who are enjoying the benefits of democracy? That's what then triggers the uprisings.